So when we're thinking about it in 2.0, we're going to bring assessment more into integrated within the different types of intake process, and build it out into 3 steps. So at the beginning of your interaction with the customer, like welcome them to the center and introduce and get introduced. So some quick questions at the very beginning of the intake process to understand needs and eligibility, and then move into career planning, where we explore their interests, their goals, and work history. And this is leveraging some of the same tools that you already use in the field to assess these types of things, but making them more prominent in 2.0, and sharing them with the user, and giving the career planner the space to have places where they can document that within the system instead of putting it on the side or entering it later. And then finally, work and training readiness check. So for folks that want a training service or get training, they go and have a deeper level of matching with training, OJT, WACs, job opportunities, and asking further questions and assessing further for their readiness to work. And then, so right now we're in the discovery and planning process. We're working with the state team to understand the policy and gathering input. That's part of what we're doing here today. Then as we gather the input, we'll work with making sure we understand the PRO and the other data requirements, and then getting the policy into things that you would see in the system. After that, we'll get into screen mockups, which I'll come back and share once we have those more solidly, and making sure that we have the right technical requirements. And then finally, just like we had with other portions of the system, we'll come back and give you a first view, and then get it reviewed, and then revise and get that updated as we need in the system, so that the career planners have what they need. So my big question for y'all today is what else should we know as we get started about assessment? What are some things that we should include or not include? Or if I'm missing anything along the way so far with my understanding. I'm also here to answer questions if you have them.
Hi, Lynette. Sorry, I don't know if I should raise my hand, but since it was quiet, I just blurted in. Sorry about that.
No, totally blurred out.
Oh, okay.
Open forum.
And I apologize. We've been at this, and it's been real constructive and productive. And as we always say, we appreciate everything you guys are doing. So but sometimes it's hard to remember, like 6 months ago or last year, like did this. So if this came up already and we did talk about it, I apologize. It may have come up when we were in the early stages when Alan, you guys were talking. We were discussing kind of like, the things in the current IWDS, things that that have aged well in terms of, like, are they still relevant? Are they still intuitive features? Are they still there? So I don't know if this came up before, but as far as the assessments, I think, will there be like tabs? And this is just out of curiosity. It's not necessarily, a critique or anything, but I just didn't know of the assessment narratives. Are they going to look similar? Will we, obviously we a lot of the information we gather and have that discourse with the job seeker, slash WIOA applicant is still relevant in all those categories. But as far as how those are going to be organized, formatted in the new system, there were some that it was always tricky with new staff over the last 20 years, like to remind them that some of the screens might have seemed redundant in terms of, like, there's general, and then like differentiating between aptitudes and skills, that kind of stuff, interests and that, and then some of those screens might be kind of similar, kind of overlap. But that was my question. I was just kind of curious as far as the initial design, if a lot of that would carry over, because I can gather feedback, even though a lot of our extended staff, I'm trying to start to include some more of our, find career planners that, have a little more availability to start sitting in on these calls, especially as we do more UAT with other phases and aspects of the new system. But just at the very least, I can always like kind of gather feedback from them for when you guys are seeking feedback on the design and the content of these features and tabs. So before I kind of reach out to them, staff, and ask, I was just kind of curious from the starting point. Like I said, will they be will the new system include things that the tabs and the layout that are in the current assessment and assessment narrative sections of the current IWDS?
There will be maybe similar, maybe like the similar types of things, but we were thinking, initial thoughts were that we have two different ways to enter. One where like, hey, I'm a experienced career planner. I already know my stuff. I know what sections they go in, and kind of a quick way to add and then be able to quickly choose a selection and put the comments that they need. Other ways, like for maybe more of a newer set, is to provide type maybe I don't want to call them scripts, but sample guided conversations that
Sure.
maybe a newer planner could have with a customer along those different narrative types and stuff that would help to gather questions or
Like prompts.
prompts. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And then so that you could do it either way. The other thing is that as we move into assessment, right, we're gonna what you had what you do right now is you have your application, and we depend on the career planners a lot to have to really dig into each of the responses, right, that the customer has provided so far in all the other pieces. And then the career planner kind of has to craft assessment because we will be able to store and gather logic from all of that data, especially if the career planner is entering live with the customer, entering in, the earlier parts of intake with the customer. It will start to suggest, hey, maybe you should ask more questions about X, and then kind of and help direct the career planner to certain of those prompts so that they can get the information they need, and then eventually start to recommend that maybe, hey, maybe the customer would benefit from these services or referrals. So that's more of where we're headed. And then Crystal, I see you have your hand up. I'll let you hop in here.
Yeah, I guess to piggyback off of what Rory just said, I am wondering, the current IWDS, the assessment narratives are there, but it's up to each individual career planner what assessments they use and then trying to match up where they go in the narrative. I'm wondering, to get more into the weeds of what you're talking about, are assessments going to be embedded into the system so that, let's say you're looking at interests, for example, is an interest assessment from workNet going to be embedded into IWDS 2.0 so that when the person fills that out, it automatically auto-populates in that section of the narrative and then allows at that point additional interpretation to be done by the career planner, so that there's no more. One of the biggest drawbacks to the current IWDS is that the different areas are not clearly defined. So sometimes it's difficult for career planners, especially when they're first starting out, to know where to put certain pieces of information in that narrative section because it's not defined what is what. So is it going to be are you envisioning that it's embedded into it so that when they fill out a particular type of assessment, it auto populates into that section appropriately and then allows for interpretation after that?
Yes, that's more towards the way we're headed, but it also sounds like it would be beneficial as we get towards training, that we, and we introduce the assessment section to career planners, that we have a way to say, like, if you're looking for this type of, assessment, it's in this section, in the assessment section, and that kind of thing, where we, if you want to go to needs, if you want to go to whatever, that is clearly, that we label them clearly within the system, and do training to show where they all sit.
Right.
Right? Okay. Yeah, we can do that. And yes, we plan on leveraging some of the assessments that are within workNet more, and having them available. So maybe that a career planner can send the link of an assessment to of a one of those online assessments to somebody, and then be able to see the results once they're entered.
Thank you.
Robert?
I guess you kind of answered the question, because I was wondering with the Illinois WorkNet with the interest profiler, if they're doing it, would it come in there, or do the case man have to enter these information? Like when they're doing the tests, would everything get auto-populated within every segment of the new system instead of us have to put in making sure? And also, if the assessment, like the assessment summary in IWDS got narrated, the test, employment goal, income, and expense, is any of those four elements going to get more defined, where once it's answered, it will auto-populate the rest of the field that need to be filled? And how will you work with the expense part of the system, where you got to put in all the expense and all of that stuff, and how they making it? How is there going to be new development and requirements, or more different stuff that you may want to put in there? I just kind of wondering, because when you're working with clients, you get so much different avenues sometimes to work with. People got different stuff going on. Some could be homeless, some could not be homeless, and they're trying to see, they're trying to, is the system going to be easy enough for when you put in something in, it would carry over to the rest of the assessment field or the test field, and before you can move forward, it making sure that you finish these things before moving forward.
As far as like, if you don't like, you won't be able to put in like a training service, let's say, until the training assessment is completed, like
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 that,
logic like
yes,
that. Yes, we
yes.
can build in logic like that. And we would look to where we can to, if like someone goes and takes an assessment, where we can to bring in the answers and populate the parts of assessment where we can. And that's the other big piece of what you would like to see.
Yeah, because if we could get the system to work where people are missing information, it would stop them and let them know, hey, you 30 days past due for a case note, or you the 120-day exit rule. Something, I know DCO used to always talk they're going to do the soft exit, but they never pull the plug unless they say, hey, Robert, we're going to do this, and I will go check with my director to say, hey, they want to do this. And then the career advisor would go and just update everything. But instead of, so much people trying to figure, would the systems say, hey, what you going to do here? This person is past the 90 days. The clock is ticking. And would the system just automatically exit them?
I think that as we're looking towards automatic exit and stuff like that, and when we get to exits and outcomes, we'll define that more clearly. But yeah, we're looking to put in those kinds of things, and then also from a like a administration item, we would add to the dashboard to have rows that that correspond with that, so that you from where you all sit, that you can see, hey, for my OEA, here, this many customers are, overdue for X, or they're about to trigger something, or, something's not right. These folks tried to enter into service before they were supposed to. So you would be able to see all that from a reporting standpoint as well.
Okay, great. I can't wait for the exit part because I know Chicago in this system they got it where you can't exit nobody. It's only certain people could exit them. I know DCO and myself and other local areas probably use a talk where they had somebody that said, okay, you want to exit before you couldn't just exit. They had to get the approval to exit. And maybe when the exit time come, we could go more deeper. Would they be setting some kind of boundaries as far as would the case manager exit them, or would the manager exit them, or have a player who would do that role as far as exiting? But we'll talk about that when that
No.
time comes.
No soft exits in the new system.
No soft exit?
No soft exits in the new system where it'll be set up like Career Connect and such, where it's 90 days without a service. That's where iPads is going to become very integral, because you're going to make sure that your career planners are looking at that and ensuring that your customers do truly have an active service. So iPads will be something that career planner supervisors will be reviewing pretty frequently to make sure that they don't have anybody that's getting close.
Awesome.
And then in chat, we have to make sure we ask applicants why they want the training they're seeking, and continue to remind them for the reasons being in training, encouraging them to work their plan. So yeah, the customer-centered design that we've talked about with application, other customer and a career planner facing things will carry over into assessment and all the way through the customer life cycle, so that we continue to keep that conversation going, and keep everybody accountable for their roles in the in the training process, and to achieve successful outcomes. So thanks, David. Any other comments or anything that I need to remember as I start with assessments?
I would just add, this is Dave Taylor, made that comment about asking why. I would just add that the old version of IWDS was really looking, when assessment was facts, and the why is the critical part, particularly when a career planner leaves us and another career planner has to pick up a case. It's critical if that assessment has the why. The facts are clearly in IWDS, but the reason behind the customer wanting to make the change or to grow is often left out.
Okay, so adding the why helps, especially when the facts plus the why help is keep the career planner and the customer accountable. And then if for any, and make sure I'm just saying it right, I'm repeating what you said. And so if the career planner ever changes, the new career planner can come in and see both the facts and the why, and kind of be able to move more, come up to speed more quickly in making that new connection with the customer. Am I hearing that right?
You did. Nice summary.
Okay. Awesome. So I will be coming back to y'all as we keep going down this path and asking way more things. I just wanted to let you know that we're starting to talk about this. And
I think it's just an ongoing issue that career planners struggle with. What do you put in your case notes? What do you put in your assessment? For example, if you're working with a single mom who has a significant other who is supportive, that's important to know. If she has a significant other who's not supportive of the training plan, that's also important to know.
Agreed. Thanks. And then Rory, I see your comment here about having some permission things to designate. So we've not started talking about user roles yet, but I'm that person, so I'm going to take that note for me and I'll bring that around when we talk about user roles.
Yeah, thanks. And thank you, Mark, for answering that in the chat. It was not to get ahead of ourselves, because like you said, Lynn, and I realize you're just kind of introducing the concept, and the exit thing, maybe we're kind of getting ahead of ourselves. But yeah, just throwing it out there that like hopefully, as it is currently, that there will still be some that the local system administrators, that would just be our input, is that it's good to still let local system administrators have some latitude or some ability to assign, certain roles and not. But and we'll cross that bridge when we get to it, I'm sure.
Right. And Roy, remind me, currently local areas don't really have the ability to do that. It's just in policy and procedures that you don't want them to do that, right? I don't think you have the ability to restrict them doing exits, do you?
Yeah, currently, I mean, yeah, I don't think there's any, as long as they have in the roles and permissions.
Yeah, because we only got about 3 kinds of roles. Yeah.
I mean, it's like if the case manager, it might even still be called case manager.
So that's going to be quite a discussion, Kelly and Al, and especially as it relates to IPATs also, because currently there's really only 2 roles, even though we have 3 titles. There's really only 2 roles in IPAT, so we just have to think through all of that and determine how we would handle that, where a local area want to restrict certain career planners maybe to allow certain functions, whereas others they wouldn't. And I especially could see that with newer staff, you wouldn't want them jumping into exiting people potentially. Although with an automated exit, that's not really a role anymore. It'll all be up to the career planner putting services in timely, so that the 90 days is an accurate measure of from the last service. We definitely look forward to that conversation and figuring out what all different roles we're going to need.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think
if it's case manager, it's kind of an all or nothing. I mean, then they're able to do pretty much anything in the case manager screens. But I was just saying, with the new system and, and with new technology, and obviously, a lot of new potential. Then there's the potential then to go ahead and say, well, maybe now certain roles can be assigned, certain can't. So
yeah, that's kind of that would be a new thing for you, Alan, Kelly, to consider, of giving someone with certain roles also have the ability to set other roles, which the only ones that can do that right now are the state.
Yep.
So we got to, we'll come back to that.
Yeah, let's come back to that, because I'm the one that brought that up. And I was saying, I think when I said that, I was almost wanting to say Chicago, because they use a different system. They don't use IWDS.
Right.
And that's where I think I remember hearing about it, because Renata, I want to say is her name. I remember it was something, I just can't remember what local area, but they had it where that you couldn't, a case manager could not exit somebody. And I'm like, wow. I'm like, that's awesome, because sometimes you don't want them to exit, because sometimes we got to look at the performance, and sometimes people tend to forget about the performance. And what I try to tell my local area is that if we keep on exiting and we exceeding, you're not serving the purpose. How can we extend these or make it where we could exit them in the next year? But if you have to exit, I understand it. But sometimes then they go back, I gotta send something down to the state to unexit somebody. So because they wasn't finished with their training, they had to do a test. It's always that's something. So sometimes I hate to have to ask, Chris or Jim or Paula to unexit somebody, because then they got to go back. They got to look at the performance, how that person hit that performance, to see if they want to allow it, because we got to look at the number first.
Well, that's another discussion, both performance and further down in discovery. But that should be a process where exits occur because they should occur, not because we need to worry about our performance.
That's right.
But
Yeah.
different discussion. We'll talk about later. Thanks.
Yep. Robert, I'll bring you in when we start talking about that. So if you, we just opened up the conversation here. If you think of something after the session and want to bring it up, feel free to email me. We're just starting here in assessment, and you're going to hear some more. So this is just a welcome, and thanks for your input today. With that, I will hand that back over to Al, and we can go over UAT, and he's got a bunch of other fun stuff for you today. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. All right, there's two things I want to do. First of all, I want to just, we finished out UAT release 5, cycle 1. And we extended that to the 3rd, or the first of this week, which was whatever that was. So because of the holidays. So there's just a few more comments in the note, and thank you for all those who logged into the notes. And I'm just going to bring those up and let's talk through those. And then we'll go on to a little training demo. So let me share the note page. Kelly, is that visible?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, these were the ones from last time. There is a new one from Paul down here. Okay, so I think what happened is, it's a little bit weird in test because, well, two things though. I think your expectation was that if you entered an FEIN and provider and an email address, and then you went back to that page, if you had saved the link to that page and entered that again, you would get right into your pre-screening data, and you would not get a message that basically said, hey, the ETPL pre-screening process has started. Is that my understanding? Is Paul on here? Paul may not be on here. So the issue, we had a few questions on this. I think, Krista, you had some questions on this too. But the issue in normally is, remember, you're not going to have a fake email. You're going to have a real email address, and you have received a link in your email to get to your second page, and then you can go back to that link at any time to get to there. Why is that necessary? Why, if you saved off the address, why can't you go directly to the address? Because in that link, it's got a security token, so we know it's you. We at least know, we don't know, it's not real great, but we at least know it's you have access to that email because you have that security token. Okay. If you go in, if we allowed somebody just to put in a provider name, provider FEIN, and an email address, someone else could do that. Someone else could say, oh, I know it. I know that person's email address and I know that provider FEIN pretty easily, and then just go from there. So it's a half a step, a baby step of keeping a non-authenticated user, so to speak, on the same data that they had started on. Okay, so the other thing about that is if it's a different email address, not just the same, if it's a different email address, obviously but the same provider, we're giving that same message and basically, hey, there's something wrong here. Okay, and then that contact that we're going to give you through that will be able to help you because they'll be able to see the pre-screening data and all that. Okay, and they'll be able to talk through that with you. And and it takes a little bit for the person, right, a little initiative for that person to go find out why the same email that's been used by someone else, or the same FEIN has been done by someone else, I guess I should say, same FEIN. It will take a little bit of take a little bit of effort, and that helps because we know it's not just hacking. because if somebody goes and just hacks around and tries to do that, then it's malicious and we don't really, but if they won't follow through, then it's not really necessary. So that's where that's coming from. That's pretty much, there's some other in here, the same concept. So normally, we provided that fake mail concept so that you didn't have to, you could, put in several and you didn't have to go back through your email. And obviously, if you go back to email each time, you might get confused about where you were. But and we tie the email to the data, so you'd keep going back into the same one. So that's really a test thing, and it works a little bit different there. Hope that explains that a little bit better.
Yeah, just a quick follow-up to that. So essentially a person from a provider, a person from the provider would have to go, you're saying they have to go back to the email that they got from the system
Yep.
to continue on with filling out the rest of the info.
Which is the way that they got there in the first place, right? So
Okay.
the only way they got back, like once they hit the link, enter their information, then it says basically, we sent you an email. I don't know if you've tried that yet, but it actually works. And it'll send you an email and you can go to that email, hit that link and get into your data. You could go back to that email, hit that link at any time and get into your data.
Okay. And then, yeah, I didn't put in my email to have it go to my email. I should have probably done that, but the email does say they have to go back to that email in order
It
to.
says use this link or something. I have to look at it again. This is the link to get you to continue your pre-screening.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. And hopefully, we'll keep fleshing that out. Hopefully that's not, we don't get too many misunderstandings or something, or somebody doesn't call and say, I don't know how to get back to my original. But we'll see.
So is that take into the same question that I had before? Is it the same situation where I accidentally entered a fake email that was the same for a different provider that I was trying to make up and put in the system, and it took me to the previous provider's information instead of?
Yeah, that's yeah, because see our fake email address, our fake email address thing, it doesn't do that token security thing, right? So that fake email just bypasses all that. So you couldn't ever do that unless you went through the link. And if you went through the link, it would be the same provider you started with.
Okay, because I just
Exactly what
wanted
you
to make
did.
sure.
Yeah, that's why. Yep. That's
Okay.
it. It's all around that fake mail address because we just wanted to bypass the continuous process of sending emails out, and you guys have to chase those emails out and get back in just for testing purposes. Fake email goes completely away, and you have to go through your email to get to the link. And if you did that at any time, you'd get back to the same record. Okay. Hopefully that helps. We actually, I guess we thought it'd be easier, but maybe we made it too confusing. But the problem is with using your same email, as you saw, you're going to go back to the same record, right? So you're not going to get to do those other tests. Like if you want to do multiple test cases with different criteria and go through the flow different ways,
Right.
it's going to take you back to the same, like it's going to take you back to that initial one, and it's going to take you back to that saved data. Then that's okay if you want to go previous to the front and then take another path. I showed you how to do that too, but.
Oh, sure. It just surprised me at the beginning because I accidentally did it, and then it took me into a different record, and I was like, what is going on?
Yeah, that's why. Yeah. Okay. All right. I commented on these. Last week we talked about those. This one here, Laura, I will look at these and make these changes. Should be no big deal. These all look straightforward. Okay. I wanted to get to this one because Laura's on, I believe, and we want to talk through this. This one down here says community college certificates of completion. Paul says a certificate of completion of training is different than a certificate. And I think a certificate implies that there was some kind of second party validation to earn the certificate as a result of training. There's some examples, forklift training, but the actual forklift certificate has a certificate number. Certificate is credential, but the certificate of training completion is not. Community colleges and four-year colleges both offer certificates or certifications that people can earn. Bachelor degree in IT management. Have a specialized certificate they can obtain by taking a couple additional classes like A+ certification, C+ certifications, et cetera. So it would not apply just to community colleges. It's my understanding that a credential certificate of completion does not qualify as a credential because the certificate given for completing the training program and not a certificate or certification is needed to work in that industry.
Yeah, and Al, and it's just interesting. Nina Tangman from IBHE just emailed some of us, kind of asking if there's definitions of this. So this is timely in that sense. I'm attaching a desk reference for RAPs. They may consider their outcome a certificate of completion. We would accept that and be a credential, but for the most part, certificates of completion only indicate someone completed the program, and it really isn't the credential that we need for a positive outcome. I think some of this still needs vetted, so for everyone on the call, don't be beholden to the information we have here. But I think for a long time, Paul and I have been pretty consistent in stating certificates of completion, for the most part, should not be considered a credential. It may meet an MSG. We've indicated, depending on what that's indicating as far as being completed. But again, for the most part, it's not actually a credential that leads to positive outcomes for the performance measure.
So is there
Yeah.
inconsistency between Mark, between credentials here and certificate of completion here?
Well, I think you have to have it because like DOL is indicating, and there may be other instances, RAPs may use that terminology, and that's all they give us, a certificate of completion. You got through our 2-year program. And so we have to have it as an option. And when we talk about Pearl elements and reporting for the individual and ETP reporting on the 9171, we're going to have to, that's one of the options that are listed there. So if a provider says all they give is a certificate of completion, we're going to have to question that and see what that means. If all it is maybe something like a OSHA 10-hour class, they're giving you, saying you got through the program. I did the OSHA 10-hour classes many years ago when I was in that field, and all we're doing is giving them information. There's no skill test to know if what you learn you can actually apply. So it's really, that's all you're getting, is saying that you went through the 10-hour class, so good for you. We can't really say much more than that, and that's why it's not really a legitimate training for a credential, but it could be an MSG because you have gained something. But I think we have a little bit more discussion to have there. And when we set up each of those fields and all those options, we got to make sure we define that well enough that people get that.
Okay. What is an example of a provider that has a program that would select community college certificates of completion, just for me?
We might have to ask Jared. You're on here. You've been at ICCB. Is that anything you? We'll let you jump into the fire here. Anything you might have any knowledge on?
I would not be the best person to ask. I would recommend reaching out to
Yeah.
I know. I don't think Paul's on. Is Paul on?
No, Paul is not. Yeah, I think Jared's right. We probably need to reach out to Whitney Thompson or someone else at ICCB and ask them if that even exists, because maybe that doesn't exist.
Right. Yeah, if institutions other than community colleges, that's what you're saying. If institutions other than community colleges offer certificates of completion, then they wouldn't have anywhere to check. That's what you're getting at, right, Paul?
Right. Because it's
Yeah.
not just, there's certificate of completions at both community colleges and
Higher
also
education.
in four-year degree institutions.
Right. So we need to make, we've got something in Nina. We've been talking about it. So if we need to make that change, we will definitely do so. It is on our radar.
Okay.
Thank you.
Got a couple raised hands too. Al, Rory, did you have something?
Roy?
Yeah, it just, I mean, and I think actually Laura and Mark kind of already sort of answered that. And it's probably, again, that would be more of a policy procedure discussion for another work group and, another day. But just the way we've looked at it is the community college that College of DuPage is the one that we own, that's in our LWIA. It's, there are some there, and even some of the universities, DePaul, like some of them have in the Chicago Cook area, we know that some of the universities have very reputable programs for business management, and they're like postgraduate certificates. So it's basically just saying that it's a non-degree, but they are credit hour classes, and so those we would count as like, okay, that's valid. Or at the community college, there's like an accounting and bookkeeping certificate that gives them very good accounts receivable, billing, purchase manager types of jobs that people have gotten after getting those, after attending that kind of training. And it's one of those, it's like, not to split hairs, but like industry recognized credential, we interpret that as like, would employers see this on your resume and say, hey, you went to DePaul and completed this, it's a certificate program, but hey, DePaul, Keller School of Business or whatever, or, oh, College of DuPage, that's a very reputable community college, or Harper College, or Lakeland or whatever. If you completed these credit hours and got grades, you obviously gained the knowledge that and like the accounting principles and management and all of that, finance, whatever, that would be necessary for someone to perform this job. So that's kind of how we've sort of interpreted. Maybe that's a twisted kind of version of interpreting it, I don't know, but that's kind of how we've interpreted certificate from the compute. We don't really call it certificate completion. I mean, although they're getting it for completing it, but it's a little more than completion. Obviously, if they got the grades to attain that, to earn that certificate program, which is essentially the same credit-based classes at a community college, you're just not doing the full associate's degree. And sometimes it's because actually, people, they already have bachelor's degrees, but they just need to kind of specialize in some of these skill areas, so accounting or like a business management certificate program at community college. So that's just, if it gives you an idea, if you're wondering like how we use it or how we kind of have interpreted that. But yes, any private business vocational school or technical school, if it's a non-credit based, non-academic institution, a certificate of completion does not cut it. It's like, no, then they need to attain, if you're offering an accounting class and you're, Bob's computer school, or Joe's, IT training boot camp, like then they need to have like QuickBooks or Microsoft Excel certification exam. Then there's got to be something that's a credential there. So sorry, not to get off on that tangent, but if that helps as far as like how we kind of interpreted I don't know if other areas have done it the same way, where certificate from a community college, we do kind of interpret that as valid on many occasions because it is coming from an industry recognized institution. And, the idea is that they have earned and gained, skills and knowledge to perform jobs in that particular occupation that employers in the industry would be looking for.
I see, Laura, you dropped in the state leads to a certificate of completion from an accredited institution of higher learning or higher education, includes community college as well as post-bachelor and postmaster certificates.
I was just thinking that was following along with exactly what Rory was talking about, is with the post-baccalaureate and the postmaster certificates that he was talking about. So
maybe good text for an info bubble.
Yeah, well, again, we're making sure that we're dotting all our I's and crossing all our T's, and because it's different in the ETPL reporting versus Pearl reporting, and so we just want to make sure that we're getting the right language in here. So we're just following up on that, but we will make sure that whatever we get to, we'll get it in there and make sure we have a good info bubble there. If we need to split it out or whatever.
Yeah, based upon that, Laura, do you really think that community college should even be there? It should just be certificate of completion.
Well, we're following up with NINA, and then whatever comes out of that, we'll make sure that we update this accordingly. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Robert, did you still have a question, or is your hand raised from earlier?
Yeah, Robert, I think is up.
I think that might have been from earlier. I'll lower it.
Okay. In-state, out-of-state, looks like I got a document name. Other than that, I think we got through these last time. There was a question, I don't know if Laura you were on last time, where it said, what if there, and maybe this is gonna help that. This says ETPL state authorization, so that's very specific. Am I in the same place? I think I am. And it says, sure providers are known for looking for, do we need info bubbles to explain what we're looking for? I guess we just need a better name. Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, okay. I think that's okay. I just think I gotta change that name. What's that say now? I can't see that line. Okay, this one here.
I think that was a question kind of to the field there.
Yep, you're right. I see that. I was gonna bring that up because you brought that up. Okay, so Laura's saying most of the Illinois schools are going to be accredited by the Higher Learning Commission. Does the field need to, the field being all the LEOs, do they want this to be as the first option or just keep them in alphabetical order?
Well, I like alphabetical order, but that's just me.
Well, I think, were we
That's
supposed to be thinking about it in terms of what the provider is thinking? That's this section,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
Okay, so then if that's the case, if I am a provider and I'm looking through it and I'm Illinois, higher learning is going to be the one I'm looking for, maybe I find it annoying to have to scroll down.
Yeah.
I just want to go to my thing and click it and go on.
And why we always got to make it easy for everybody else? Why you all?
Oh,
You see,
Robert.
yes, you know I'm gonna go there. It's
Well,
like,
yeah, but
you always want to make it easy for somebody. Hey, alphabetical, let them show. How long that gonna take, man? I ask, what, 2-3 seconds?
but
Yeah.
in this instance, they're the
Hey,
ones
guess
filling it out, Robert.
right?
What's the
But
90,
okay,
I
and
guess
then
can you search? So if you start typing higher, it'll take you
Yeah.
down there.
Yeah.
So I
yes,
guess that'll be okay. So
yeah. If they hit H, just pop right up.
okay,
Yeah,
that's fine.
as long as it does that, it's okay.
yeah, if you type in IL, it'll go right to them.
Okay.
See,
and
there
I'm
you go.
Awesome.
I mean, I'm
Okay.
just speaking as somebody who does most of the data entry for providers because they don't want to mess with our system. And so one of the things that they say historically about current IWDS is that it's much too cumbersome and confusing for them to figure out how to put their stuff in there. So if we're looking at it from their perspective, the easier it is. So if it's going to assuredly every time auto populate, if they just type an H and it's going to take them right there, then that's fine. If they have to scroll, I would say no.
Yeah, gotcha. No, they don't have to scroll manually. In fact, just type in, start typing. I think it actually does it contains. I got to look at it though. In this scenario, I might do contains, which is a little different than a regular drop down. You know, a regular drop down, you're right, Robert, that normally you type in them, whatever the leading characters are, it's going to go to them. But I believe this one does. We can go over and look at it, but it does if you put a word in there, it finds all those that contain that and filters it to that. Or 3 or 4 letters. All right. All right. Nothing there. Got a few name changes here. Okay, I was going to ask about this. So we added on the proprietary training programs, right? Providers, proprietary training providers. I think this is where you're going with this. So now we're not community-based or labor management. What do you
Right.
want? What did you say you wanted up there?
I didn't say. I just wanted to make sure that I pointed it out. So
You're good point. No, because
yeah.
we're not. We can change that to if they select that proprietary, we could change that to proprietary. You know what I'm saying?
Okay. Yeah.
We could switch as it go. And I think that's probably what we're gonna do.
Okay.
Okay, I'll miss.
And then do it for the other two. So switch it if it's just community-based organization, that's what shows, or is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, let me see. Um, Let me get in here. Move my thing here. Let's take a look real quick. Actually, I believe that's not to UAT yet. Let me go into staging. And let's take a look real quick. All right. Okay. All right. So here,
Right, and that was where we proposed to change that wording as well,
There.
so that we included in the checkbox that needs to be changed as well. That wording up
we
on
need
the
to
third.
add
Yes.
here too. You're right. You're right.
Yeah, yeah, we changed that as well. So, but yes, now I see that you have it down here now. That's great. And then
Yeah,
we
and
also
then we can
shortened
make whatever we hit here, we
Yeah.
can make that title too. Okay.
Yeah. All right, sounds great.
Kind of like we do with public-private higher university.
Uh-huh.
Yep. Okay.
Good.
All right. And I don't think, oh, we got another, okay, what is, oh, you would say, because you don't know if it's local, right?
Right, right.
Right. I agree. I see that. Yeah. And we'll get that fixed up one of these days. When they're discussion we got to do on LWIAs, on all the data we're capturing around LWIAs and figure out how we're going to do that, the best way to do it.
Okay.
So once that gets put into place, which we got a discussion about that tomorrow, then we'll be able to get that in to be the exact thing we need. Okay. That is the UAT stuff. Appreciate your help all the way through. We got, let me see here. We've got 30 minutes. So I'm going to I'll give you a peek again of the progression of our training program. We have we're going to have a few more changes yet, but I just want you to kind of know where that's at. And so let me just get into a training program. I'm going to go from stuff that's not deployed, so you wouldn't even be able to see this anyway. So I'm going to go from the training plan review page. This is where a reviewer, approver, so to speak, from the LWIA or the state would work off of. Obviously, it would default to the user's LWIA, and it would show all the programs, providers that are in a ready for approval status that are local to them. So there's a lot of filtering going to go on that, but our default filtering, but we also have all the filtering too, just to let you know. But I'm going to go into, let's see if I've got a lot of garbage data. So, all right. So we can go directly to the provider or we can go directly to the program. When we go to the program, it's in view mode. Okay. At the top right here is an edit mode, but if I was reviewing, this is probably the way I would stay until I needed to do something. But over here is navigation, just to remind you if you haven't seen this. We've divided this out into program of study, the outcomes, the cost, instructional hours, entry level requirements. Now this is not an apprenticeship program and not a pre-apprenticeship program. If you have one of those two, you're going to get, in place of the program cost, you're going to get a sheet for those. Okay. Okay. So on this first page, we gather the program name, the program description, website, year program was established. You pick one of these. It's either a registered apprenticeship, pre-registered, or neither. Don't worry too much about this yet because we don't know if this is going to bake in or if this is going to go away. And then you could enter the code manually, or you can use the button. So I'm going to get into edit mode just so you can see what that looks like. So this is our first page. I could enter that manually. Now you don't have to have the period. Or you can search here and search for that program in here. And when you hit that, then you would have it come in. Okay, so there's only one there needed, and it will either fill in or you can just enter it. Okay. Then the last thing on this first page is which locations will this training program be provided from? Okay. And we'll list the locations here, and you can pick whichever locations. Okay. And then you go, so you don't have to put in, you don't have to necessarily, if it's the same program offered in multiple locations, you don't have to put another program just because it's in another location. Okay. This page has to be entered before you can go forward. Once that page is entered, you should be able to go forward. And this page here, it's going to be changed somewhat, but it's the one that has the outcome types, name of the outcome, and then who it's issued by, and if it's WEOL recognized, and if it only prepares you for. But there's going to be some more information on this, so I don't want to stop there and get everybody hung up there. Okay, we'll come back to your discussion, Crystal. Okay. This is the cost page. You have to enter something, okay? These are all blank when you start out, and you have to enter something. Even if it's 0, it'll tell you. If you enter something in this one, then it will tell you that you got to provide a description there, okay? Talks about, what's the procedures? Where do you buy books or whatever? That's what this is for. And then other types of financial aid here, okay? And then the cancellation or refund policies. So that's what program cost page is. Instructional hours, it tells you, is it a credit hour based program? If so, how many credit hours and how many total hours of instruction? If it's a clock contact hour based program, how many hours per week are expected and how many weeks to complete the program? This describes that somewhat complex clock hour thing. Okay. Got to hit one of these two and fill those in. Entry level requirements. This is tells one of these. Do we have to have do you have to have a high school diploma or equivalent, associate's degree, bachelor's degree, or none of these? And then the second part of that is, are there course prerequisites? And if there are, then we have to get at least something in here, that provides that information. At the bottom here, are there other physical exams or other requirements, such as drug and alcohol screening, physical exam, background check, or other? Okay, Roy, I know that technically we only need to earn and providers only need to lead to a minimum of industry recognized. This back on our pre-screen thing.
Yeah, sorry, I was typing slower
Right,
than,
no problem.
than you were going.
We'll
So
come
you're
back.
on the next screen. So when I say this screen, I meant the one you were on previously. Sorry.
This one here, or outcomes.
The one right there, I think, where it said industry
Yeah.
recognized credential, the name.
Let's don't get too hung up on this yet. We got a few changes to tweak on this, and then we'll come back to this page in a week or two because
got it. Yeah, this isn't set in
we got a
stone.
few more changes we've been working on. This is our hardest page as it turns out, and we've been working on this page.
I can see
Figure
that.
out because you have MSGs too, but you got to select one of each. So we got to make sure this works correctly. But
sorry,
that's why that's why I breezed over it. Sorry about that.
No, thanks though.
And then how is it offered, right? In person, online, or hybrid? And then what are the additional information regarding the offerings such as, full-time, part-time? Do you have an open entry exit, internships, labs, any amount of these or other, okay? Could providers see examples of prereq statements, college placement tests? Okay, let's go back to that. Could providers see examples of oh, so like maybe an info on these, info icon,
Yes.
or even maybe here to cover all of them, but
Yeah, I had a question about that too, actually, because if we're talking that this is the provider ideally that is entering this in the
Yep.
provider world, prerequisite for them means a completely different thing than what you're talking about.
could go ahead with a little bit more. Tell me the two
Well,
different.
because I'm thinking about comparing it to IWDS currently, where when it asks for math, reading, language, writing, it's asking for like test results. Like they have to take a certain type of test, whereas a course prerequisite is like literally courses that they require for a person to take, like Bio 101 or something like that before they get into something else. So you got to be careful about the language you use because it's a provider filling it out. Their impression is going to be different.
So instead of saying, are there course prerequisites, you would say, are there
like, is there some kind of pre-screening
test
or
levels
testing?
or course
entrance
prerequisite?
requirements or quality,
Yeah.
something like along those lines. Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, they can be kind of two different things. Sometimes they're the same, but yeah, often they could be different.
Yeah.
You took that down, Al.
I'm writing this down, but I wanted to hear your language again. You kind of trailed off on me. Are there like what are you saying? And are there? They're not prerequisites. So are there? You
like admission requirements,
admission,
pre-screening tests.
Pre-screening.
That's it. Yep.
Yeah.
Currently, the providers don't fill this out, of course, that I do as the performance manager. And so I'm what to put in that blank. I don't have to think about it, but they're going to see it new and they're going to need some guidance.
Yes. The moment you say prerequisite for anyone in higher education, they're going to think you mean individual classes, not admission requirements.
A C or better in biology 100 or must
exactly
math 101 or something. But yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. All right, I get that down, Laura. You maybe need to help me wordsmith that. Okay. All right. Anything else on this page? Did we hit the big three before we went to other or because we don't want to everybody have to hit other, but that's probably
I guess I have another comment. Sorry if this is going to cause some issues. So I agree with that, separating those two things out, which is admission requirements and then course prerequisites in order to, apply and get accepted into the actual program, like nursing, right? They have prerequisite courses and then you apply and you get into nursing, or not. But there are some institutions where, like Rasmussen, right? Their nursing program is like up here, it's a 2-year, they have a 2-year nursing degree program. And on the surface, it looks like it's a 2-year program, right? But technically, when they start they accept them into the program, and I put that in quotes, because they accept them into a program, but they have to do prerequisite work and pass the TEAS test before they officially get accepted into the nursing program, if I understood how that worked correctly. So if I'm a provider for Rasmussen or institutions like that, where I have the program structured that way, how would I, if we said course prerequisites, how would I, as a provider, answer that?
I think here, right? Unless that's too common and we don't want to put it in other, but
right. So how would they know to choose that? You see what I'm saying? Like, because I might just say as the provider, I would say it's a 2-year nursing program. And so yes, they technically have to pass the TEAS test and get it, but it's all incorporated into one training. And so we're going to, so if they don't pass the TEAS test, and then they don't have these 4 classes done, within the program, then they can't move forward, right?
Well, I'm trying to understand this too, Paul. If they're able to enroll without doing something beforehand and they're getting those quote prerequisite unquote during the class, then they don't actually have a prerequisite. This is all about what is needed to enroll in this class.
Okay.
Tell us what's needed so that we ensure our participants are ready to go into that class and we don't set them up for getting denied enrollment because they didn't do what was needed, whether it was meet a math or some kind of test score or complete some other class before they can enroll in this or whatever that is. I think the rest of that is all part of the curriculum then.
What's the word? Whatever. Doing it at the same time, right?
Right.
I can't remember what the word is for that. But so if they're doing both at the same time, then we would consider that as being in the program. So as a provider, then I would just say it's a 2-year program, right?
Well, I think I would have to differentiate doing it at the same time from, is it part of the program or not? If it's like, you can go ahead and enroll, but we need you to also go over here to this other place or even within the same institution, but you also have to be taking these, but they're separate of what you're doing here for your 2-year degree or certificate, then I don't think they are. I don't think it's the same thing just because they're happening at the same time. So I'm just trying to visualize how you're saying it's laid out with Rasmussen or whoever might have a similar process. If it's wrapped into it, then to me it's all part of the program and it's not a prerequisite.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, I would view it that way. I don't know what others are thinking. I think prerequisite or whatever we want to call it, tests are all about what do I have to complete before I can enroll in this class and be accepted to this. I'm sorry, not class, but this program.
Okay. Yeah.
And I don't know that I would care when that's happening.
Okay. So would that need to be somehow defined in the instructions somewhere?
Possibly. We don't have, this is very similar to what we have today, though. How was that entered? I don't think this page is much, this section is much different than today.
It's not. It's the very same thing that's in there now. So,
How do you
but
fill it out?
but if we need to make it a little bit more understandable now that providers are going to be filling this out, then we do need to
Sure.
make sure we're using the right language.
Yeah, definitely. Is that done before the end, as long as that's done before the end of the training program? Or I think that's a differentiation too, right? Is it
Well,
done?
I think it's all, to where I was saying, I mean, if it's happening at the same time, I'm trying to visualize how it can be part, how it's not part of the program, because if you tell me I got to do this as a prerequisite to get in the class, but go ahead and enroll and start. What if I fail that prerequisite? What use is it for me to even now be in the training itself if I didn't meet that other criteria? To me, I don't
No,
see
they're
how they
saying,
would happen
yeah.
at the same time unless it's part of the class itself and say, we'll go ahead and get you through it, but you're not going to complete the class unless you do, you do this. But I think, I think we can provide some definitions to make this work.
Yeah. Okay. All right, let's get back to offerings. This is the decision that matches our reporting, in person, online, or a hybrid. Hybrid means for this training program. So do I go to some classes and face to face, or maybe I go hybrid, or maybe I go virtual for everything but tests? That's a hybrid program. Provide additional information regarding program offerings. Of course, these are the top ones of which would be good for, knowing, okay, can I get this in? weekend or night or day and all those kinds of things. Let me look it over here in chat real quick. Definitely, David. Yeah, it doesn't separate the categories. That is correct. It just says, what are the, whatever that top one is, entry level requirements. I think there's a reason though, Laura and Mark, right, why we wanted to separate those. Going back to entry level requirements, there was a reason why we wanted to separate these, right? Because this is reporting. And this is, if I remember right, how we report this is, it's either this, I believe this, and there's another field that I say there's both.
Right.
Because
You
you'll
could,
notice, you notice in that screenshot that I put of current IWDS, it just says entry level requirements and has the drug and alcohol, all the other degrees and so forth, physical exam, math, reading, language, writing. Prerequisites is its own little button under there, not labeling the whole category prerequisites.
yeah, I like that. What are the entry level requirements?
Yeah.
Yeah, I like how that's laid out. I don't know why we wouldn't use something similar.
Because again, provider filling it out. We don't want to confuse them.
Yeah, that part in the current IWDS is thank you, Christopher, because I was trying to figure out how to do a screenshot in the
How's
chat.
this
So you
any
beat me to it. Yeah, that's pretty straightforward. I think, and I don't want to speak for everybody, but I think
It's
maybe
this,
what we're getting at is like maybe just pull the prerequisites if some people, for like a community college program, for example, or Rasmussen College, maybe just pull the prerequisites thing out of that list from how it is in the current IWDS, and then because there could be a little more detail instead of just trying to cram it into one text box, that maybe it would benefit to just have then prerequisites kind of distinguished from, like, to make the distinction between entry requirements, admissions. Like you said, Mark, what would it take for someone to even qualify to enroll in this program? And then as a subset of that, like if there are prerequisite classes, maybe define, add that prerequisite coursework, something like that, and then just make it its own little section. But that's
yeah.
Yeah, just trying to help out.
No, I was very helpful.
Mark, I thought there was a reason that we did that for reporting purposes.
Well, we just split them up so it made a little bit more sense as far as putting the physical stuff separate from I mean, it's the same stuff, it's just in a different order. But I see what they're saying as far as having something different. We can revamp this. There is no reporting requirement around prerequisites.
I mean, maybe the one where you
yeah.
use prerequisite could be somewhere tied to an education level or something.
Education levels above. So yeah, but I would
Oh,
say,
yeah.
I would say that that's where we can have, must have like Rory's example in the chat, right? Is that what he put in there?
Yeah, I was just kind of offering a suggestion, like what Paul was mentioning with Rasmussen College, where it was like, well, if you have those two things and they're both necessary for somebody to get into the program, they're kind of both, maybe they're two different categories of quote unquote necessary things.
Yeah, so we'll just
like prerequisites
split that into two.
Yeah, just like that list that's currently in IWDS, like all those things are fine, and they logically, I think anyway, make sense in the list that they are, because math score, reading level, would you need a prior degree? Do you have to pass a drug or physical test? Those are all, like we've been saying. I agree. What I would define as entrance or enrollment requirements, and then prerequisites is kind of like its own animal. I mean, it could be a subset of entrance requirements, because you might not be able to get into a radiology or a lot of these allied health science programs like nursing and RN without having completed, anatomy, biology, something like that. So that would be maybe like its own section. And then, and many times it may not even be applicable. Like the provider, it may not even apply. Like there may not be any prerequisite courses for a vast number of training programs, probably. So it's that. So if you pull it out and make it a separate section, then that way it's like you would only need to fill that in if there were specific courses, and then maybe just change the language to mean prerequisites to make sure that they know that we know that that's referring to courses, completed coursework or something.
Okay, we'll revisit this more. I don't think anybody had anything on this one here. And of course, ONAT codes. We had discussed this. Somebody had discussed this and said, hey, I think we had for a brief period of time, and that was my mistake, that we had to have more than one, but we do not have to. We can go with one only. But it'll take, I got to 6 or something, but you can type it in here. I could type in 31-2021-00, or I could type in 31-2021 period 00, or I could go over here and search and get as many as I want. We also have demand occupation colors over here. For several of them, not all of them. So that's how that works. I don't think there's any questions there. It's pretty straightforward. We are going to try to do some cross-checking. I've got a chore out there now for a developer to look into cross-checking the ONET code with the SIP, and possibly providing if we can do this, we'll propose something, but possibly providing a warning or something that says, actually, I think it might have been one of Robert's things, but possibly providing a warning that says, basically your ONET occupation code and your course code don't really match up. So I don't think we would stop it, but I think we would keep that warning on there through review for sure.
Hey, Al, before you go on here, can I just ask a question?
Yeah.
How is it? I really like that you guys went ahead and incorporated that suggestion to put the color coding in on the search for the codes. How does this present after it's all entered, and this may be thinking ahead, how does it present to staff who are looking at the pros when they're tying it to ITAs and stuff, or versus the public facing side of this? Like, is there a way to make this show up so that if it says physical therapist assistance, for example, that there's the little color coded box appears next to it?
Like we could bring that color coding into here. Yeah.
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 I
had that mocked up at one time, I think, but I don't know why I didn't in here.
You're referring to the demand occupation training list, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So demand occupation up
But
here.
just remember, as much as we've color coded 6 allowable demands, there's no difference in how a career planner should approach this. That tells them nothing different other than, okay, you might make a little bit higher wage because you got a level 6, or it might take more training because you have a level 6 versus this was a pink one that the local area requested and got approval for. It's still the same situation. Each individual has to have a discussion with a career planner of what are your interests. Here are the available jobs that are in demand across the state. But if you're set on living in this local area and in this community, we got to sit down and think which ones are truly in demand in that you would be that would be proper for you if you're not going to move. So, I mean, we need to do another webinar on this because we have had quite a few questions over the years on this, but it doesn't change the fact that the conversation has to be had. It doesn't make it any less because it's a lower number doesn't mean it's in less demand or what, you just have to think through it. It's just one way we separated what the criteria got it on the list for.
Now, Crystal, what was your thought process about having it there? How would you use it that way?
Well, frankly, in the past, we have had situations where a program is on for multiple years and the demand occupation training list can change.
Mhm.
And so you may have a code in the system that is no longer in demand, and yet it's still listed there because, in fact, that provider does train and it can lead to occupations in that area. So that allows you to have a conversation with your person. If they demand that they want to go into training because they want to be a video game designer, and you look at that and that's no longer in demand anywhere, then that allows you to have that conversation with just a quick glance. So it works both sides. I don't disagree with what Mark's
So it's
saying,
in the
of course.
conversation with the provider. Is that what you're saying? Because
No.
at the customer level, you'll have that at on the other side, on the service side. When you're looking at training and you're going through the ETPL with them, we're going to create some type of an assessment there where you would go through that with them and show the demand code. So this is just for the provider.
But if it's not in demand, it shouldn't show up at all, right?
Well, that's just, I mean, that, I guess that's a separate question too. If you're
Yeah.
going to search
I mean,
the codes.
yeah, I probably didn't need to go through all that discussion, but I like to put the code here. I don't have any problem. I'm just saying we need to be mindful of what the code means. And I think we overestimate, or whatever the word is, having that code. I agree that we need to make sure we're telling people this is actually in demand, but I'm not sure it shows up if it's not in demand.
Well, that's exactly what I was asking, is
Yeah.
how is this presented on
Yeah.
the forward-facing side, whether it's a provider or the public-facing side of a person searching for a program and looking for what occupations it trains them for? How does it show up on that side? Is the color coding going to show up? Is it not showing up? What's the?
Well, right now, what we have is what's out there currently. We haven't discussed if we're going to make what changes we are making to the public facing side yet. So
Yeah, we went through this and
So because you guys are asking for all input about different.
absolutely, yes.
Yeah. So that's why I'm asking.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I had a call come in real quick, and I'm right as Crystal was about to say her thing. So, but I think we might be on the same page. Did you say, Crystal, like when Mark asked why you were thinking about putting the color coding, at least on the training program description screen? I
Right.
didn't know if you were saying, because what I was thinking, and so if this is what you ended up saying, I apologize. Like I said, a call came in. I had to mute for a quick second my speaker. So, but I was just saying, just so we know, if a provider submits a program, we can look right away and say, oh, you offer 2 or 3 programs that are lead to occupations, careers that are in demand, but this one here, I don't know. It's trying to think of one that would be really like a totally non-existent, like pipeline worker or something, oil rigger or some rig worker or something. I think used to be one that was on there.
Right.
So, yeah, sorry,
Yeah.
we probably wouldn't approve that. So, I mean, the client side is a whole different thing, and I kind of like what you're saying, going at with that too. But I was just saying on a training screen, even if it's like how it currently is now, just some kind of indicator to like I don't want to say red flag again, because there could be times where you could still approve that training for a person if they're really appropriate for it. But I'm just saying some kind of a flag that like, oh, hey, this is kind of a lower priority rating and it could be in demand, but maybe let's check the local wages on this before we consider with our WIB to approve this program. So that's where I would kind of be looking at, like, if you were going to put a color coding, that's how I could see a potential benefit.
these aren't
Training screen.
Yeah, because I mean, I've dealt with lots of providers that they'll submit 100 programs and want them all approved, and you have to go through every one of them and say, well, this isn't, there's nothing linked to this that's in demand. I'm sorry, but unless we have a reason to put it, you have to have that whole discussion. And frankly, they get a little annoyed. So if the color coding does carry forward, then at least it's a signal, that there needs to be additional conversations, whether it's the client or the provider or whoever. I just was curious if it was going to appear there or not.
Yeah.
Well, that's good.
Yeah,
That's good. I agree with you guys on that color coding, because yes, the provider sometimes does send in stuff and they expect all their program to get approved. And we ain't approving everyone if it doesn't meet it. And I know the state was say, oh, we wanted to forget that. Sometimes we kind of want to cater to everybody, like we have to do it, like it's mandated and stuff. And I remember always saying that WIOLA program is not an entitlement. And the same thing with the provider, it's not an entitlement. Trade is an entitlement, not WIOLA. And sometimes we tend to get away from that and just want to do everything to make that one person out of the many feel happy. I'm not one of them. So
Yeah.
Codicola is good to some degree, so they gotta understand it. But when I send out stuff, I have a template, and I fix it every time something new come up, and I put the language right in there so they know, hey, if this thing doesn't meet XYZ, we ain't gonna approve it.
Or
So-
it could be, on the positive side of that too. It could lead to like what we're going through with our community colleges. There's 2 programs. We had one recently, a central stir processing tech, medical equipment preparers was on the list. It could also be a flag, like I said, not a negative red flag, but just a flag that says, ooh, hey, coordinator at College of DuPage, are you guys seeing a lot of, are you placing a lot of students? Because if there's jobs there and we're just not seeing it in the most current LMI data, let us know, get some employer letters. And then that way you could maybe talk about possibly petitioning to get that job. So
Right,
there's,
I
there's
agree.
benefits of just
Yes,
letting
I
us know,
agree.
where that occupation currently resides. That's what I'm
Correct.
saying.
That's right, Roy. I agree with you 100%. If there's job in that field that you're doing, and they could get employment, bring it. We're always looking for that. So that's 100%, 110% true.
All right, we're out of time, but we will come back to this, of course, again, and probably again and again. But anyway,
Yeah.
Indeed.
thank you for your time. Appreciate it. Glad to show it to you. So let me see. Anything, Lynette, or Kelly, or Taylor, else you have? You all good?
I'm good.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Al. Have a great rest of your week now.
You too.